Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we're diving into a pretty controversial take. It's about one of the most popular ways to travel on the planet, and man, it all starts with this one statement that's just designed to stir things up.
Yeah, see? The source material we're looking at today, it doesn't mess around. It just comes right out of the gate with this super direct statement. And honestly, the whole argument is built on this one idea. So, let's dig in and figure out what's really behind it. But for millions and millions of people, this is what cruising is all about. You see these giant, gleaming ships, and they're practically screaming adventure and luxury. So how on earth does the source justify calling that not a real vacation? Well, it starts by going after the one thing a cruise is supposed to guarantee.
Okay, let's dive into the first piece of this argument. And it takes aim right at the heart of why people even go on cruises to begin with.
So the whole thing kicks off by kind of asking you to be real with yourself. It's like, hey, think about it. When you're crammed onto a ship with thousands of other people running on a pretty tight schedule, is that truly relaxing? It's a fair question, right?
And from that big question about relaxation, the argument then zooms in. It shifts from this general idea to some really specific critiques about what it's actually like to live on one of these giant ships.
And listen to this. The source paints this picture. It says you're literally trapped on a floating mall with 5,000 people eating the same buffet for a week. Wow. Instead of freedom, you get trapped. Instead of a foodie paradise, it's the same buffet over and over. That's a pretty direct shot at that whole promise of luxury, isn't it? Then, the argument puts it side by side. It's like, look, for the exact same amount of money, you could be at an all-inclusive resort on land. You get a room that doesn't shake, a beach that stays put, and the freedom to actually go explore. So the argument here is that this isn't just about what you prefer, it's about what makes more practical sense.
So that brings up a huge question, right? If all these criticisms are valid, then why do people keep choosing cruises? This is a really important turning point in the argument because it shifts from talking about the ship itself to talking about the mindset of the person on the ship.
And this next part, this is where it gets really pointed. We're building up to what's probably the most provocative claim in the whole piece. It's a direct challenge to why cruisers do what they do.
This is where it gets personal. The source basically asks, are you going on this cruise for the actual experience, or is it because it's the only kind of international travel that feels, safe? It completely reframes the whole decision. It's not about curiosity, it's about comfort.
And boom, there it is. Is cruising just training wheels for real travel? That's the killer line. It's memorable, it's a little bit of a dig for sure, and it perfectly sums up the whole critique. The idea is that cruising is this sanitized, super controlled version of travel, It takes away all the messy, uncertain parts, and maybe, just maybe, the authenticity along with it.
So the argument is that the whole thing is just a big trade-off. It's saying that when you choose a cruise, you're choosing the ship over the culture. You're choosing the buffet over authentic food. That's the deal you're making, whether you realize it or not.
Okay, so where does all this land? What's the final verdict from the source? Well, it all boils down to what you're really paying for when you book that ticket.
The argument is that for some people, it's not actually the travel part of cruising they love. No, it's what the cruise gives them on a much deeper psychological level.
And what is that? Well, according to the source, it's these three things: the routine, the control, and that predictable comfort. The idea is, we live in a pretty chaotic world, right? A cruise offers this perfectly predictable, totally controlled bubble. So the vacation stops being about the place you're going and starts being about the comfort of the system itself.
And all of that leads to the final label the source slaps on the whole experience. A pretty damning one, too. It calls it a floating comfort zone. It's a new term meant to capture this idea perfectly, that you're not really traveling in the traditional sense. You're just taking your comfort zone with you out to sea.
So there you have it. That is the core of this entire argument. And it leaves us right where we started, with that really provocative question. Is cruising a real vacation, or is it just an expensive floating comfort zone? It's a critique that's definitely designed to make you think, not just about how you travel, but more importantly, why.